Alabama, let's get it.
The process, no one can stop this. Hottest show in the streets, I bet you can't top this. Recruiting news and interviews, just sit back and watch this.
Recruiting news and interviews, just sit back and watch this.
The process.
How's it going, everyone? Welcome back into The Process, Crimson Tide Recruiting. I'm your host, Justin Smith, the Director of Recruiting for Touchdown Alabama. Thank you guys so much for joining me today for another episode. The first thing I want you to do is hit that like button, hit the subscribe button as well. Subscribe to the notification bell. Be notified when we drop all of this great content on our YouTube channel. As always, I'm here each week to break down the latest in Crimson Tide football recruiting news. On this episode, I have a couple of things to get into, including a couple of guys who have visited Alabama this week, some guys who will visit later this week. Also talk about a top Alabama target setting an official visit, and also discuss some new offers that the Crimson Tide's coaching staff extended. So let's dive into it. No need to waste any more time, and start with Nolan, a 2024 four-star quarterback out of Langston Hughes High School in Georgia. He's one of the top overall quarterbacks in the 2024 recruiting class, and he's set to announce his commitment actually on this Saturday, April 8th. He has a top 7 at the moment. Looking at the top 7, he has Alabama, Arkansas, Clemson, Miami, Ohio State, Texas A&M, and Oregon listed in that top 7. He has taken recent visits to the Ohio State Buckeyes. Of course, Ohio State actually offered him over the weekend. He already had them in his top 7, but he didn't officially get that offer until he visited Ohio State. I'm pretty sure he had a good feeling that he would possibly get that offer. That is why he had them in his top 7 before they actually offered him. He also recently visited Clemson, Texas A&M, Miami, and Arkansas. The Crimson Tide hosted him a couple of months ago. Nick Saban offered him, despite the fact that they already had a commitment from 5-star quarterback Julian Sand out of California, who's easily one of the top quarterbacks in the 2024 recruiting class. But according to Nolan, Alabama having a commitment from Julian Sand is something that he's going to take into consideration. I will read the quote that I got from Nolan when he got an offer from the Crimson Tide, knowing that they had a commitment from Julian Sand. This is what Nolan had to say. You have to compete at the job I play, which is quarterback. You cannot run away from competition, especially at the position, especially with the game of football. Competition is something you cannot shy away from. I know they have a commit. At the end of the day, it is business. Coach actually told me he's going to take 2 in this class. Just knowing that they have a commit is something I have to take into consideration. But at the end of the day, I would love to go out and compete with any and every quarterback in the country. So Nolan knows that there's going to be competition no matter which school he chooses. It seems like Ohio State is in a good position. If I had to make a prediction, I wouldn't say he's going to Ohio State, but I just think the Buckeyes do have some momentum with offering him over the weekend. And we all know that Ohio State, great program and all in this 2024 recruiting class. And I'm not mistaken, I think they are looking for their first quarterback commit. I don't think they have a signal caller committed at the moment. I may be wrong, but I don't think they have one. I think they lost a commitment from one of the top overall quarterbacks in this class a couple of months ago. So Nolan, like I said, will announce that commitment decision on this weekend. Actually posted that he was in Tuscaloosa on yesterday ahead of that commitment decision. That this visit has been in place for quite some time. His teammate actually took that visit with him. I'm going to talk about his teammate as well. I'm talking about Jacob Good, a 2024 defensive back who will team up with Nolan this upcoming season. Actually played his junior season at Sandy Creek High School in Georgia, the same high school Alabama's former safety and one of the top safeties in his upcoming NFL draft, Brian Branch, attended. When you take a look at Good's recruitment, he actually has a top school list at the moment as well. I think he has like a top 12, a long and loaded top school list. He recently released that. Of course, the Tide is included in that top school list. You have the Tide along with Florida, Louisville, Ohio State, Georgia Tech, UCF, Arkansas, Texas, Georgia Tech, and also Texas A&M. Good is not rated on any major recruiting sites particularly high. I think he's not rated on a good portion of them. I think his highest rating is like as a 3-star recruit. I think that is simply because I don't think he has been evaluated yet. That's like literally the only explanation to it, because when you watch this guy's film, I was having conversation with a couple of guys who are scouts and recruiting consultants, and I was like, this guy has some of the best defensive back film in the country. I think he should be pushing for a 5-star. If he should, at worst, he should be rated as a 4-star, but this is a kid I think has an opportunity to be a 5-star at the end of the day, just looking at his playmaking ability, how fast he plays, how physical he plays. I mean, this is a guy who moves like a defensive back, plays with a crazy amount of confidence. When you watch his film, look at the way that he breaks on the football. He's a guy who can also blitz at the defensive back position. He has experience at it in terms of figuring out which lane to blitz and just hitting blitzing lanes, which is something I think some defensive backs who have came to Alabama in the past in recent years have struggled with. Even Brian Branch, I think he's really good at it now. It's been great to like really see his development as a blitzer, because he was blitzing throughout his career at Alabama, but I think he made the biggest impact this past season. I think a lot of people saw how impactful he was in terms of getting pressure on the quarterback. But when you look at Good, he's a guy I think is a little bit further along in that part of his game than some other defensive backs. So Jacob Good, like I said, was in Tuscaloosa on yesterday. Actually plans to be in Tuscaloosa for a couple of days. Alabama offered him the same day that they offered Nolan. He had high praise for Alabama, saying that they developed the best there and he wants to be the best one day. Said he loved being in Tuscaloosa. When he first got that offer, told me that he was actually looking forward to getting back to Alabama to camp. So he's hyped up to camp. Of course, Alabama wants to get as many of these guys on campus to camp, because like I always say, nothing beats in-person evaluations. So Jacob Good has that big top school list at the moment, has Alabama in it. Of course, in his top 10. I think the Tide are sitting really good with Good. He's a guy I think they're going to continue to try to evaluate, but I am high on him just watching his film in the way that he plays the game. So Good is a guy to definitely continue to look out for, who the Crimson Tide are hosting at the moment. The Crimson Tide also continuing to host a couple of different guys throughout this week, including another Georgia prospect and 5-star defensive back, KJ Bolden, out of Bruford High School in Bruford, Georgia. Arguably the #1 safety prospect in the country. Like a couple of other guys who Alabama signed from Bruford, like Jake Pope, and also Isaiah Bond. When you take a look at Bolden, he's a guy who you can make an argument for to be a wide receiver at the next level if you wanted to. Isaiah Bond played defensive back, because when you take a look at his recruitment and his journey throughout his high school career early on, a lot of schools, I think including Alabama, actually liked him at defensive back first. Of course, he grew as a wide receiver and continued to get better, and you just saw his progression as a wide receiver and eventually just switched all the way over to wide receiver. And of course, he's a young wide receiver for the Crimson Tide at the moment. But Bolden is a guy who the Crimson Tide will host later this week. He was trying to figure out when he was going to get back to Tuscaloosa. Wanted to get back to Tuscaloosa last month actually, but his track season got in the way of that, so he rescheduled his visit. Will be in Tuscaloosa later this week. The Crimson Tide have been recruiting Bolden for a couple of years now. I know their former safety coach Charles Kelly had a great relationship with Bolden, so the Crimson Tide are going to try to capitalize off of that relationship, continue to build that relationship with Bolden. I think the Tide are in a really, really solid position with the 5-star prospect. He actually recently released that he will announce some official visits soon. It wouldn't surprise me at all if Alabama is one of those schools who he locks in an official visit with. So that is something I'll keep my eyes out on when it comes to KJ Bolden, as he's going to be getting ready to release an official visit date list for a couple of different schools, and I think Alabama will be one of those schools who will host him for an official visit. A guy who the Crimson Tide want to most likely get an official visit from in the future is Jordan Ross, a 2024 4-star edge rusher in this 2024 recruiting class out of Vestavia Hills High School in Vestavia, Alabama. He's a guy who we talked about on the show several times over the last couple of months, and it's simply because of his rise as a recruit. Showed out at the Under Armour Atlanta camp. Talking about a guy who ran a 4.4 40-yard dash at 6'4". He's a guy who looks the part. I actually had an opportunity to see him train recently under former Alabama wide receiver Mike McCourt at Maximum Performance Training in Bessemer, Alabama. When you take a look at Ross's recruitment, he has a loaded list of visits at the moment. He actually returned to Tuscaloosa for a day after unofficially visiting Alabama for Junior Day last month, and he said that visit blew him away. Going back to some of the things that he had to say, he said he met with Nick Saban. It felt more personal. This time, he said it felt like he knew a lot more about him compared to previous meetings. Also talked about the fact that he loved what he had heard from Alabama's coaching staff, saying that they feel that he can do some great things there, and he feels that he could fit into the system. He's still trying to develop his relationship with Alabama because they are one of the programs who are one of the newer programs in his recruitment, because he had offers from Georgia, Tennessee, Auburn. He speaks highly of his relationship with those programs, but Alabama has come on a little bit later in his recruitment, but Alabama's coaching staff knows that. Freddie Roach, Alabama's outside linebacker coach, Coleman Hutzler, both of those guys are aware of that, and that's one of the reasons why they're telling Ross to come back to Tuscaloosa as much as possible so you can get more comfortable with the place, so you can get more comfortable with Alabama's coaching staff. So Alabama's coaching staff is doing the work to recruit the 4-star edge rusher out of Vestavia Hills High School in Vestavia, Alabama. Like I said, he has a loaded visitor list already set up. He will be in Tuscaloosa, like I said earlier, on April 22nd for the Crimson Tide's Junior Day. He recently took a visit to LSU to kick off the month, so the Tigers were able to host the 4-star edge rusher. He also plans to be in Auburn on April 8th, Florida on April 6th, Tennessee on April 15th. He also looks to be in Oregon on the 29th, so he plans to be very busy throughout this month. He said that he's really hearing a lot from Georgia. I think Georgia's a school that's in a really good position with Ross at the moment. Speaks highly of Tennessee, speaks highly of Auburn. So those are the schools who, if I had to pick out some schools I feel are really standing out to Ross, it would be, I think I would put Alabama at least in the mix right now. I don't think they're in that group with Georgia, Tennessee, and Auburn yet, but they are in the mix. If I had to say the schools that are standing out to Ross, in my opinion, it would be Georgia, Auburn, Alabama, and Tennessee. So we'll see what happens with Ross as the Crimson Tide continue to try to build their relationship with one of the top in-state recruits in this 2024 recruiting class. Speaking of official visits, the Tide will get an official visit from one of the top tight end prospects in the 2024 recruiting class, and Jaden Riddell, who told me that he will be in Tuscaloosa for an official visit on the first week in June. I talked about Riddell, I think a couple of weeks ago in the process, asking will Alabama land the nation's number one tight end in the 2024 recruiting class, because Riddell is in the conversation to beat that number one tight end. You're looking at 6'4" prospect who can run a 4.4 40-yard dash. You don't see that every day. Similar to Ross. You don't see edge rushers who can run that fast, and those guys are basically two hybrid type of special athletes. And when you take a look at Riddell, you really see his speed show out on film after the catch. He's easily one of the best receiving tight ends in his 2024 class. Alabama hosted him recently, and he said it's one of the best visits that he ever took. So he will return to Tuscaloosa for that official visit in June. I think Riddell is a guy to definitely keep your eyes on. He will take a couple of more official visits as well. And like I always say, guys who take official visits during the summer, a lot of them want to be committed before their senior seasons begin. So Riddell is a guy who could be in that conversation as well. We will end this show by talking about a couple of guys who recently picked up offers from the Crimson Tide, starting with Cameron Michael, a 2024 4-star athlete out of Statesboro High School in Georgia, one of the fastest prospects and most explosive prospects in the 2024 class. You're talking about a guy who ran 10.5 100-meter dash. If you're running that fast, you are a different type of fast. That is what we call verified elite speed. Actually is listed as an athlete because he plays on both sides of football for Statesboro High School. I think he'll most likely be a slot wide receiver at the next level. I think he plays like quarterback for Statesboro, because a lot of times he's like this wildcat quarterback who just takes off and uses that explosiveness, uses that crazy elite verified speed to create separation. But he got an offer from the Crimson Tide, and he called it his dream offer. His literal post on Twitter was, "I got my dream offer from my favorite school in Alabama." He said it was a dream offer because he feels Alabama has been dominant for ages. He said they are arguably the best program around here. Of course, Georgia is involved in his recruitment. He wants to get to Tuscaloosa soon. Similar to Bolden, his track schedule is sort of getting in the way, so he's trying to figure that out. I know Bolden had to reschedule his visit because of that. I expect Michael to do the same things, especially considering how much he loves the Crimson Tide. Just looking at them from the outside, looking in, growing up, saying it was his favorite school in his dream school. The last prospect I want to talk about today is Josiah Brown. The Crimson Tide are going after a recruit in an area where we don't see Alabama recruit a lot. I'm talking about New York. Has the Crimson Tide's offensive coordinator Tommy Rees extending the offer to Josiah Brown, most likely to play wide receiver. When you take a look at his game, he's an explosive athlete with great acceleration. You see his acceleration when he's running routes, but you also see his acceleration when he gets the football in his hands after the catch. So he's an explosive prospect who the Crimson Tide are going to try to give a look to during this 2024 2024 recruiting class. When you take a look at Brown, he wants to get to Tuscaloosa during the summer. New York, so I'm not sure when he's going to get to Tuscaloosa. Actually, I think this is a guy Alabama would like to see camp for sure. They're going to like to see a lot of guys camp, so I would look out for Josiah Brown to possibly get on campus and camp in front of Alabama's coaching staff. That offer, like I said, came from Alabama's new offensive coordinator Tommy Rees, so we'll see how things work out with Josiah Brown, but he's a guy just to keep in the back of your mind as the Crimson Tide are going to continue to extend new offers. Some of these guys are prospects who Alabama's coaching staff have never seen before, so they're going to try to get them on campus during the spring if they can for spring practice, so they can get a feel for the program, see a spring practice. Some of these recruits who are visiting Alabama for spring practice actually get an opportunity to sit in on team meetings, so they get an opportunity to get a behind-the-scenes, in-depth look at the Crimson Tide. Some of those guys are going to return for the summer to camp in front of Alabama's coaching staff to make their offer committable or just to confirm some of the things that Alabama's coaching staff has seen from film on them. So we're going to see a lot of that. I think Josiah Brown fits into that conversation. Of course, there are other great prospects who are going to have to do the same. Alabama really wants to get guys on campus to camp, similar to me. I think in-person evaluations, nothing beats that. That is why I'm able and why I feel comfortable talking about a lot of these guys in front of you guys, because I am out on the road all the time evaluating these guys as much as possible. If you saw the Mason Short commitment video they put out on our YouTube page recently, you probably saw me at City Walk in Birmingham. I'm actually out there evaluating some top guys, including one of the top edge rushers in the 2025 recruiting class. I'm Jared Smith. So the Crimson Tide are going to do the same, try to get as many in-person evaluations as possible. But that is what I want to talk about on today's show. As always, thank you guys so much for joining me today on our YouTube channel. Before you leave, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, subscribers, hit the notification bell, be notified. We drop content on our YouTube channel. Then head over to touchdownalabama.com, pick up your subscription today. After you leave there, go to the Google Play Store if you have an Android device, download the Touchdown Alabama app. Also located in the Apple App Store if you have an Apple device, to download the app as well. With that app, breaking news notifications can be sent to your phone by the staff here at Touchdown Alabama. As always, I am Justin Smith, the Director of Recruiting for Touchdown Alabama.